Thanks for that kind introduction, Gary. I don't know what to say. Other than, I know you worked with the department for a number of years. I don't ever recall you being here when you're working. Some people say you're still showing up, but I'm working, my work's getting done. So I'll let that alone. Thank you for letting me be here today. This is my 5th time at Tiger Bay. It seems every odd year something happens where I get to show up. 01 was Mac Mines. I can't remember the exact order, but we had a tent slashing, we had cutting, that happened, we had the handcuffing of a 5-year-old, and typically when something bad happens, I stand before you to try to explain. You got to explain it sometimes. This time, it was more tragic than any of the other ones I would describe it as. Bob asked me to come and speak to you. It was shortly after that we had lost our 3 officers. And I will tell you, in no uncertain terms, of all the crises over the last 10 years, those 3 deaths have really rocked my world in that police department. We received 30 years, we lost an officer by the name of Tony Sullivan in 1980. And that was 2 years before I became a police officer. And so we had never known something like that. We had gone to Tampa, we had gone to other places, other jurisdictions, and honored those who had given the ultimate sacrifice. But we really didn't have experience that, or know what to experience when it's happened. But on January 24th of this year, we lost Officer Jeff Yaslowitz and Sergeant Tom Danger. And they made the ultimate sacrifice trying to take a fugitive into custody. That case is closed, and I can talk a little bit about that if you have questions later on. 28 days later, on February 21st, we lost Officer David Crawford. That day started out as kind of a good day for us. Once we had led Jeff and Tom to rest, we were able to start the healing process a little bit in the fact that we were doing fundraisers, we were working together, and actually February 21st was a day that we spent at Feather Sound Country Club. I got to play golf in the morning, but it was more than that because I got to stay for the afternoon flight. And really it was the first time I had started seeing people in my department smile in the last month. There was some joking, there was some glad-handing, there was some other things going on, but it was a very enlightening scene for me to be there. And then we lost Dave that very night at about 10:30. I got a call, and it was tough for us to deal with. On the 24th, I don't know how to describe that. Maybe you may have seen for the news media kind of carrying it live. I think one radio host was playing it play-by-play as we were out there, and several of you in this room were on scene as we were trying to deal with the situation. And it started out as a routine thing that we do. I mean, we arrested about 16,000 people every year in the city of St. Pete. Most of those go off without a hitch. A few times a suspect or an officer will get injured, or you'll read about some significant arrest or things like that. But every day in our community, there's dozens of arrests made, and really they're uneventful. Other than we take them up to Bob, the sheriff's office, and they get to be babysitted for a while. But most of the officers' activities and duties go on that day. That day changed a lot of us. It changed a lot of our outlooks on that day in January, because you were sitting there, and probably the most difficult thing I had to do that day was send a group of officers in for what we call a tactical rescue. We had gotten Tom out, but Jeff was still in the attic, and we didn't know his condition. We feared the worst, but we didn't know. And you can't leave one of your own sitting in an attic like that, not knowing if he's alive or dead. So several individuals from my department came up with a tactical plan, and I blessed it and sent them in. And the next thing I heard was probably about 300 rounds going off. Obviously, there was an exchange of gunfire, and you could just cringe every time you heard a round being shot off there. Not only worried about their safety, but the neighborhood safety and those sitting on the outside. It was a difficult day. When we lost Dave, it was a little bit different in the sense that, like I said, that night that we got that phone call showing up, there was no way that any of us had kind of fully recovered from the first incident. On February 21st, we showed up at the hospital. I did about 10:30 that night. And you could see the expressions on the faces and the body language of my folks that were there at the hospital. And it was heartbreaking. I couldn't believe it. I know Nair was there with me, he couldn't believe it. And everybody was just numb. That's the best way I can describe the feeling that we had. It was a little bit different in the sense that we had a suspect on the loose. We were doing a pretty intensive manhunt, for you will, for about 24 hours there until we were able to get him into custody. But sometimes you have to view things differently when you in that type of situation. We shut down a hospital, we shut down roadways, we closed schools the next day. We did it till we did an exhaustive search, and we're confident that our suspect wasn't in the perimeter at that particular point. Later on that evening, about 10 o'clock the next night, I was able to stand before the media and announce that we had made an arrest in the case. But when you look at those two incidents, the second one, there was some focus outside the morning for us to do that. With Dave and Tom, with Jeff and Tom, it was, okay, we've got a funeral coming, we've got all those things, and I hope that our community feels that we treated them with dignity and respect that they deserve. And for Lorraine, Paige, and Donna, my thoughts and prayers continue to go out to them today. I can't imagine having as a family to deal with an unexpected loss like that. And each family dynamic was completely different than the other ones. The emotion. Lorraine was a rock. I mean, she really was. She was grounded in her faith. Many of you probably saw her on TV and how she handled that. And to this day, her kids are having that faith to get her through. Paige was one who took it very, very difficult, and she is still struggling to this day. They were very close. They didn't have any children, and I constantly worried about her. Donna and Amanda, which is Dave's daughter, both got very angry, and I didn't see that in the first two. They were very angry. Obviously, they have a right to be. And even when we had the services and the award ceremony, they were still upset. And I know we've got a trial, and Bernie's here today, and I'm not going to say too much about that case. Or will I if you ask a question about it, because we still got prosecution to go through. But the family dynamics on three of those things were different. But I want to thank the Sheriff's Office in Tampa. They both helped us tremendously, and the other agencies that came over. You have a great group of law enforcement agencies in and around this Tampa Bay area, I can tell you without a doubt. From the feds to the states to the locals, everybody pitched in, everybody did a good job. We work well together. We don't see some of those that are from the Northeast, where the fire department and the police department don't get along. I can't imagine that, but I hear that that's true. And it's not territorial here. And you've got some good law enforcement agencies in this community that serve this community well. Myself and my department are proud to be part of that. And I'm very blessed to have a lot of men and women in the police department who simply do an outstanding job every day. It's their hard work that keeps the city safe. They do it, and even in the light of the tremendous loss that we faced, they were still out there plugging along doing their jobs. And that's a credit to the individual who serve in this department. I want to thank the city, the county, and the whole region. We had an outpouring of love and support like I had never seen in my 30 years. From people calling up to offer money for services to make sure funeral arrangements at the police station. Everything that anybody could do, they just did. I bet I sent out 9,000 thank you letters and comments and emails and things we followed up on. I tried to follow up on everybody who sent something in, we would send something back out to them. But the one thing that I will say is the families, I think based upon what I understand, we're very appreciative of all those donations and the efforts that everybody put forward. Financially, I think they're going to be okay. Emotionally, they're still going to have a challenge. And so are we. The good thing that I think that came out of this, kind of initially that my officers were able to see was the fact that I think for the first time, everybody loves the fire department for some reason. I can't ask them. You know, you come there and you show up, you're going to help them somehow. But and every once in a while, you get somebody who likes the police department. But for the mass group to show the outcare and the love and support that we saw, kind of universally around the community was just unbelievable. And I guarantee it was the first time they saw it to that magnitude since they've been on the department, because there were only about maybe a dozen that have been there longer than I have. And that was amazing to see. So thank you all for supporting us at our darkest hours. The response to this is, well, what do you learn from this? What do you do? How do you respond to this? And I thought about trying to come up with, well, how do we learn yet not try to say that any of these officers did something wrong? But how do we learn from it? There was mistakes that I made, they made, somebody made. How do we not get another officer injured if we can learn something from them? And then Jane Castor and I are good friends, and you know, she lost Curtis and Cohab over there about 4 or 5 months before this happened, I think it was. And I talked to her and said, you know, maybe we can all learn something together. And so Jim Sewell's here. I asked, he's my good friend too, and I asked him to maybe come up with a concept with me to sit down and figure out all these agencies that responded to these incidents, both in Tampa and St. Pete together. Let's talk about those incidents. Let's learn from what we can. And we broke it up kind of from a tactical perspective, equipment, training perspective, and even the employee assistance program for the mental health of our folks. What can we have done better? What can we learn from this incident? What can we do this? And actually, there was something that Tom Lang wrote that I'm going to read that I thought was just outstanding. And it kind of set the tone for our summit that we had. Officers Cohab, Curtis, Vince Crawford, and Sergeant Banger gave the last full measure of devotion and duty. Deputy Marshal, I'm not going to name him, also paid a heavy price. And several officers put themselves on harm's way during the incidents included in this review. There are many acts of valor and dedication. We are fortunate to have benefited from the service of these men and women. Questions asked during this review do not diminish in any way the service of these officers or that of the officers who brought their killers to justice, or those that lead them. Rather, any lessons we learned today are the final gifts given to us by our fallen brothers. We honor them by paying attention. And that kind of set the tone for what we did that day. And we asked a lot of questions. And there were a bunch that basically asked us to take a hard look at ourselves. And we wanted to be self-critical. And I think it was a group that met. There was really no work product necessarily that came out. The idea was to get the input from everybody, listen to everybody's critique, if you will, and then for those agencies that participated, I want to say, I don't know, 50, 60 agencies, Jim, something like that. A dozen of them or more were federal agencies, a lot of state agencies, and a lot of local agencies that participated. And the idea was to take whatever you learn here today, take it back to your agencies and see if there's something that you can do that's a little bit different. Now, I'm going to ask Major Bevan to come up. I'm not sure how much time I have left. 7 minutes? I'm not going to get to talk about homeless or anything else. One of the things that we did when we brought the information back is we said, well, there's some I can't talk about, I'm not going to talk about tactics and how we respond to it, but I thought there were some things I could share with you all today, tangible things that you can see, feel, and touch that might, actually, I'm going to get some feedback from you. One of this shield over here was one that Sergeant Baker was carrying. It was like the one he was carrying that particular day. It's a shield that we have a few of them that are designed to protect the officers, and you hold it up in front of you. The problem is that it weighs about 30 pounds. And it's very cumbersome. And if you're a slight build or even a good build, after holding that up for 5 minutes, you about wear yourself out. And so we look at things like that and say, is there a better way to do this? Now, this other one that's in front of me over here is it's larger, but it's lighter. It's a lighter shield. There were some issues maybe with officers being not trained properly, holding far enough away so we can when their guns were discharging, it wouldn't backslap and cause a jam in the firearms. So those are things that we were looking at. We came up in our training and talked about lights on weapons, because one of the issues you got up in that attic was the fact that you had a flashlight and a gun, and you had to use two hands. So they make flashlights now that will attach to the gun so that you can actually, you're not going to pull it out and use it as a flashlight, obviously, but if you do have your gun out and you need light, it's a simple finger twitch to knock it down, and so you've got a light on your gun and still have a free hand, which can help you be safely, especially in a dark and confined area. One of the marshals had it, if we didn't have it, had a mirror, a lighted mirror that they could look around and circle in the attic. And we knew of it, but we never thought there would be a need. But we asked, well, what about a mirror? You know, what kind? Was it effective? Could be a better one, whatever. So we've asked the questions. There's some that are as simple as attaching to the end of an officer's baton. And I think they seem to like this one. It's kind of a parabolic type mirror, but you get more, you can see more out of it. And the lights on those other ones that we were looking at aren't that effective. And probably the biggest question that I got asked, well, we talked about thermal imaging on cameras. We discussed, there's in this county, and Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, we have two, well, a little more than two, but we have some rescue vehicles that are assigned to basically Mid-County and North County. We don't have one in South County. And basically it's, you know, whether it be a Humvee or something like that, but something that would take small arms fire. If we had an officer down somewhere in the South County region, to be shared by law enforcement agencies, that if we needed to go pull one of ours from a car or something like that, without putting anybody else in jeopardy, that we could do that. And we're going to look, we talked about that, and we're going to continue to look for that. And then the other thing that's come back to my agency that we talked about was the vest policy. And a vest is never going to be 100%. In fact, both Jeff and Tom were wearing vests at the time that they were killed. Dave was not. And Dave, that might have made a difference. We don't know. I'm not going to say for certain because obviously somebody could have done something different. The biggest issue, if you've never been in law enforcement and never worn a vest in the state of Florida in June, July, and August, is it about kills you. Try to go out there and stand on an asphalt surface for 2 hours in direct traffic with a vest on. You're going to fall out from dehydration. So it's easy to sit back and say, well, officers should wear a vest, but at what cost? So we said, are there any other methods that we could come up with, any other things that we could do that would make it easier or encourage our officers to wear the vest? And actually, we actually took all these things to all our officers at the St. Police Department. We've gotten feedback on all of this. And probably one of the things that I heard the most about was what we call an external vest carrier. Now, it's a little bit different mindset than what we were used to, because usually if you see a uniform, the vest is kept underneath it, unless it's a tactical kind of uniform, but you're not supposed to see it. And I think we, in our meeting, in our summit, Jen, came up with the idea that maybe it's time to get out of that mentality that it has to be underneath the uniform. So we said, look at our officers, and basically to a person, I think with the exception of one, said that they have that option where they could take it on and put it off. They would 99.9% would wear a vest. Did you model it for us?
You need to walk back and forth, though.
This is the only vest that's out there. But, you know, one of the things I would like for y'all, and if y'all tell me later on that you can stick a couple minutes afterwards, is, and obviously it's not designed to fit with, is that something our community standard could live with? Is there something, does it diminish the appearance of an officer? Does it make it look less like an officer? Typically you would see a badge, you would see the name tag, and stuff associated with that. We have a number of them in our different specialized units that wear them already. But if you're sitting in that cardio report, you pull those tabs on the side, you can start getting some air through there, or take it on and off fairly quick. I do feel a lot of them start wearing a vest that don't wear it now. And if it's saying just one, does it work?
Yes.
You know. So, like I said, if you get a chance and you want to come back up afterwards and look at it, we would probably try to match it to the uniform. Obviously, still our uniform shirt underneath. But I'm very inclined to give our officers that option. All the stuff that we talked about, we have a fund we call our seizure fund. It's not taxpayer dollars. This is money that we've taken from the criminals. And we have a fund with City Council blessing and approval that we can access the dollars and pay for these type of things out of that fund. It's got to be used for basically police-related matters. And that's how we would pay. All right.